Welcome to the Light the A Sports Podcast, home of the top interviews of Aggie Sports Nation.
Former Utah State basketball head coach Rod Tueller. Utah State gymnastics coach Kristen White. Well, welcome to the program, Jon Eccles. Ashley Cardozo. Welcome to the program, former Utah State running back Emmett White. How you doing?
And now, here are your hosts, Jason Walker and Eric Frandsen.
Hello and welcome to the Light the A Podcast. Jason Walker with you here alongside Eric Frandsen. Very excited about today's guest that we have on for our launch week. He is the former head coach of the Utah State hockey team. He was an assistant and head coach with the hockey team for a total of 15 years, and as a head coach won 264 games. He's also a three-time American Collegiate Hockey Association West Region Coach of the Year, among many other distinctions. We welcome to the program, Jon Eccles.
Hey guys, how you guys doing? It's been a while.
It has been a minute.
Yeah, I know it's been a while for me. Utah State hockey holds a very special place in my heart because that's where my sports writing career kind of began, was covering Utah State hockey, and you were the coach back then. So
and you did a great job.
Yeah. Got to start somewhere, and certainly helped me. It helped me learn a lot about journalism and obviously learn about hockey, which I
Right.
wasn't much of a hockey guy then. I enjoyed watching it, but I was able to learn a lot, and you were very nice to me in helping me through some of that.
Well, thanks. It is the best sport in the world. So
it is great. Like, I know I usually spend a lot of time in the football and basketball, but there's nothing like a good hockey game.
Close seconds. They're close seconds. So.
I've also had a lot of opportunities to talk to Coach Jon Eccles over the years, on Full Court Press. When you were heavily involved with the program back then, you were always great to bring players down multiple times through the season. We would highlight your roster or talk about your season, multiple chances to make trips across the country, and in the postseason we'd have you guys on. So we'd do what we could to let people know if you had, especially if you had different fundraisers going on, because man, club sports, that's a tough row to hoe. It's a real challenge, right, to fundraise and make sense of how to make a team work and travel and all of the above.
It is. I mean, unfortunately, where it's not NCAA and not sponsored by the school in that sense, the team does have to go out and, find a lot of sponsorships. They got to get fans into the crowd, to the ice center so that, tickets are being sold. But it is really rewarding for the players and, the fans and the coaching staff, for that matter, to be able to be involved in that, where some of the other kids in NCAA, they might not have that opportunity down at the grassroots working hard to make a program work. And Utah State was always good to us. They always helped where they could. And I appreciated my time, the 15 years that I got to be there. And it was bittersweet to say goodbye, to retire. I still miss coaching. It's like I was telling Jason, I don't miss getting up at 5:30 in the morning, opening up the rink, getting the nets out, and getting everything ready. But I still miss, the recruiting aspect, working with the kids, things like that, parents. But now as the commissioner of Men's Division II for the ACHA, we have just under 200 teams, and it kept me tied into a bunch of friends that I'd made over the years when traveling and playing and learning new, getting to know new teams and making relationships there. But it's been a lot of fun. Right now we're in the process of doing our first rankings that hopefully will cross our fingers. I might be a half an hour late because of this podcast, but we're trying to get the rankings out tomorrow afternoon for our first rankings.
So you brought this up because I wanted to ask you about this, the commissioner job. Obviously, you took that back in 2019, right?
Yeah.
So what was, and you retired from head coaching in
2018, and I was the West coordinator. And there's 4 coordinators. There's a West, Southeast, Northeast, and Central coordinators that the country's kind of split up into 4, and we're kind of responsible for the 50-ish, for some cases, a little bit less, in each region. And so I worked closely with the commissioner at that time, and, whenever things had to be done, I was, running around doing things. And then he resigned and left to start up another league. And they said, "Hey, John, we want you to put in for this. We're posting it, so you'll have other people putting in." And so had an interview, went through that, and they said, "Hey, we want you." And so I said, "Great, I love it." There's pressure times, and then other times there's not a lot to do during the summer times. From, I would say, August to March is the busy time. That's when the season's going, and I have to travel a couple times. And then at the end of the year, come April, May, we have the ACHA big meeting where we go, we vote on things, change things, and just kind of go over the league in general.
How is that, just from where you were as a coach like 15 years ago, Utah State, to where you are now at a higher level position? How has the sport at this higher level kind of grown or changed over that time?
It is. I started in 2003, 2004. Great bunch of guys. It was structured a little bit differently. Each region could send 4 teams to national, and it would be however they were ranked, 1 through 4, and it was a human ranking. So sometimes a lot of bias could come in. If, let's say, the West, if Utah State was number 4 in the West this particular year, and say San Jose was hosting nationals, but they were number 8, Utah State would get bumped out. San Jose would get into number 4. So it was really kind of unfair for a team to work that hard, but then it was also they were taking on a lot of responsibility to host nationals. And then when the computer rankings came out, still has its issues, still has its problems, but then there was no bias as far as human voters. We had one year ASU was by far the number 1 team in the West, and a couple of voters from a different state voted them at number 4. And you just got to scratch your head. They were, they were the team, and so the computer rankings have been really great, and it really forces teams to build their schedules for strength of schedule. Not to play a team that is struggling or gets beat every night, to play them 10 times just to pad your score, pad points, whereas you won't get those points in a computer ranking, because there's certain restrictions. Even if you beat the team 10-1, it still doesn't help you that much. Versus you go play, say, a UMary, who might be number 1, and you lose to them, by 1 point, you would get more ranking points computer-wise versus beating up on this other team. So it does help that. It does help coaches in the sense that, man, I got to build a schedule, got to play the teams in our conference, but also go out and play teams that are at much higher level of play.
So I know with those computer rankings, have you managed to try and change things? Because we once had a conversation where you would play, back then it was UVU, they were struggling.
Right.
Even if you beat them, 15-1, you would lose ranking points.
Right, because the way it was set up is the maximum points that you would get credit for is 7. Well, there's still another 8 points out there, but you didn't make any headway. You could lose a couple points. But again, they're in the conference. You can't ignore them. And you're trying to, build hockey in Utah, in the ACHA. So you have to, involve those teams. And back to your question, the level of play is gotten better, deeper. Coaches are finding kids now, even overseas. We had a couple of European players, Machi, great defenseman, Swede, William Wenza, a forward that came and played. Sorry about that. And so nowadays, I think. There were great players back then, but now I think there are more players on each team that are great. There are a lot of players that could be playing Division I ACHA. There are players, the Brian Gibbons, that should have probably been playing, NCAA. And there's a great story about him. He was playing Division III NCAA, wanted to come out, Utah State, loved it. He had a professional career, 5, maybe 6 years over in Germany, and now he's coaching. He's an assistant coach with Bethel, in the NCAA. And so he's really come from, seeing him, just track. There's several other players that are coaching. Like I mentioned, Machi, he's coaching in Minnesota. Riley Orr is coaching at an NCAA Division III school. There are several coaches. Sam Lindquist here at Utah State was a player. So there's a lot of guys out there that are now coaching, which is awesome to see, to give back, and that's huge.
When you started out at Utah State as a coach in 2003, it was your first year.
Yeah, assistant coach then. Yep.
At the time, the Eccles Ice Arena was pretty new, built just before the 2002 Winter Olympics. Then there were questions about, well, this was built for the Olympics. What happens with this facility now? And you guys, USU Club Hockey, you kind of took it over, pretty much claimed it as its own, as your own. Many years of success. It's a great venue, always great crowds. And if you look across the spectrum of Utah State athletics and their attendance, USU Club Hockey, probably the third most attended sporting event routinely at USU.
Yeah, it had been for years. I'm not sure what the statistics are now. But back in the day, after the arena had been built, it only had seats on the south side, right? Well, the players, we'd get together. The city of Logan was the Parks and Recs would loan us their softball bleachers, and the guys would call in like 6 to 8 to even 10 to get those bleachers in there, so now we could double our attendance. After that, the ice arena had come to us and said, hey, we'd like you to, be a partnership in, getting the seats in on this side and chair backs on the other side. And so Utah State jumped in. I cannot remember the cost to Utah State, but it was over, I think, like 10 years that they paid off. And it was a healthy amount of money. And it just made the ice center that much better as an event center, and they hold a lot of different things there besides hockey now, and the figure skating is doing well. They've got curling there. They've got Green Canyon teaching hockey. We've got the USU class, the youth hockey programs and the adult leagues. And then they do a bunch of other things down there, MMA fighting and the home and garden show. But it's a great facility, great location, and they have been awesome to Utah State, and I appreciate my association with them. It's always great to work with them. They're very accommodating.
So I want to turn to some of your time as a head coach. So I believe it was 2012, the 2012-2013 season. You go to Nationals. That was one of 7 different trips to Nationals. Yeah. That was the year you made it to the semifinals, right?
Yeah, what a trip. I mean, we ended up losing one game in pool play, so that makes it nervous, but we ended up coming out and knocking off, I believe, the number 1 seed, which was New Hampshire, if I'm not mistaken. And Ian Beckstrom, he was a great kid. Him and their captain collided, and their captain broke his ankle. So it took a big piece of them out, and our guys they were hungry. They just pushed it, and we end up beating them, which secures us a bid to go into the semis, and we go up against Michigan State. And there were no real superstars on Michigan State. They had some great players. Some of them I went over to Europe with, but we ran out of gas. We just weren't deep enough. We hung with them. They would score a couple. We would score. They'd score another one. So it's kind of back and forth. But we just didn't have enough manpower. Because if it's 5 games to win a national championship, we'd already played 3 back to back to back. Now we're playing our 4th one, and it just not enough gas in the tank for us. But I won't forget it. It was, the guys they worked so hard. Obviously, it would have been nice to take the next step, make it the finals, but it was a big achievement for Utah State. It had been quite a while that they had made it to the semis.
Jon, when you look at your teams that you've had, obviously as noted several times here, a couple of them made it to nationals, but was there a particular, I know it's kind of hard. It's like asking which of your children is your favorite, but was there a particular team that stood out to you more than any others?
Well, obviously the one we just talked about, making it semis, that's a highlight. Our first year when the regional play started, and we had, it was a short time. I can't remember the exact year that it started, but we'd played a couple times and missed out at regionals. We'd make it to regionals, but would get beat. And I think I was head coach for 2 of those, and we finally broke, that mold, whatever, to make it from regionals into nationals. And we actually were the number 2 seed in the West, and I think it was San Jose was hosting it, so they still allowed that, even though you're number 2. So now the number 2 seed gets bumped back down into regionals. San Jose doesn't have to play, but here Utah State is. They had a great record that year, and now we have to play to get back into nationals where we had our spot. And the guys came to play. We ended up winning, and that was a huge momentum boost for the club, for the school, for the players. And then from that point on, we kept, going. And then San Jose, we did good. Everyone was talking about us because we knocked off, I think, the number 2 team or number 3 team, and we weren't supposed to. I think it was 2. We were 2, and they were number 3. We knocked them off. So everyone was talking. They were talking about the players. Who's this Brendan McDonald? Who's Ken Arsenal? Who's, Tyler Misselbacher? Just all these players. And, people were coming down from the ACHA side, hey, and we went in and ended up losing a very tight game. Our second game, I think we were playing Michigan, and we were up on them. They got a couple of goals. We tied. Then they got a third goal to put them up, and right at the end, there's just kind of like not necessarily a scrum, but a lot of players, and the puck does go across the line from what everyone's saying, even the people behind the glass, but the ref didn't see it, said no, and we ended up losing like 3-2 or 5-4, something like that. So then the next game, which I kind of hate, where the team that we almost beat was now playing another team, and it was going back and forth too. So if that team that beat us lost and we won our second game, we could have gone on to the semis. And so the players were out there watching, and you can't stop them from going and, watching and getting ready. Well, that team comes back again and wins, and all the guys just kind of like their hearts sank, because now what were they playing for? Even though you're trying to stay positive, hey, we're trying to, go for a winning record here. We came out and played flat, and we ended up losing. But again, it was our first time there for about, I don't know. I know we went in 03, 04, I want to say, 04, 05, went to like Maryland and Michigan, and then it was that stretch from 05 to, I don't know, the first time when we did get back, and so it was good, but it was heart-wrenching. Long bus ride home from San Jose, and from there we just built on it. Next year we went out to Florida, which was tough. How do you corral 25 college kids when you're in Florida? In Utah, it's still kind of maybe snow on the ground in March, and they're out there with sunny beaches, and and we did okay, but then we just kind of kept building on it. I loved it. The one thing I was going to mention, different from the commissioner and coaching, I don't have those long bus rides anymore. So
you get to fly?
I get to fly, yeah.
There you go. So, want to ask you, what was like the craziest game you ever coached? Maybe if you want to, your own playing days. Like, what was the craziest game, whether it's a fight or just a back and forth game? Just what was the biggest mess you got yourself into?
Well, again, I can't remember the exact year. I could probably look it up, but we were struggling. I mean, we were at like 500. We played good enough to win some games. We just weren't. And we were, flip-flopping back with the goalies, trying to break, the losing games. DU comes to town, and
is Denver?
Denver, yep, University of Denver. They come to town, and game is tight all the way through. I mean, it goes back and forth, and I want to say it's tied 2-2, third period. There's, I think, a little bit over a minute. We're in overtime. Sorry, we're in overtime with about a little bit over a minute. They just got a penalty, so now it's 4-on-3. So we're thinking, okay, we got a chance here. Let's do it. If anything, we come away with the tie, and we're doing good. So I remember this game so vividly. Denver is lined up. They're ready for the face-off. Our guys are, talking. They go there. And the ref goes up, gets ready to drop the puck, and one of the players said, "Coach, what's Keegan doing?" And I look over in the corner, and our goaltender's over there, raising his arms, getting the crowd excited. Well, the crowd was already in a frenzy just because it was such a close game, and we're in overtime. And I see him in the corner. I look back. I saw the ref drop the puck. And their center was not going to lose that face-off because they could see what was happening. The net was open. Their center wins the puck back to the defenseman who's standing right on the goal line. And so he's about 180 feet away from our goal and the goal line. And he just lets a shot go. And Sean Gibbons is jumping in the air to try and reach it. I could just see where the puck was, and where it was in the ice and in the air, and it was going right down the middle. And we're screaming, but no one can hear us. It was so loud. And then all of a sudden, you see the goaltender skating as hard as he can, diving with his stick out, and he misses the puck by about 6 inches to a foot. And I was so mad that we had lost the game, and I was telling the other goaltender, "Get in there," because these guys are out. They were out in the middle of the ice, they had just won the Stanley Cup. They're jumping on each other, and that even made me more mad. And then the goalie looks at me, and he says, "Coach, the game's over." And then it just hit me oh yeah, we're in overtime. I mean, and we ended up losing the game. Well, that simple play there made it to ESPN not top 10.
Oh.
Yeah, and it was replayed, and it's a lot of my friends will say, "Hey, I just found this. Do you remember this?" And they'll send it to me just to kind of for. The other game that made it to the ESPN not top 10 was we were playing in regionals. So one year we didn't make it. We could have gone to Utah to play in nationals. Tied, and we're missing a couple key players. It's 2-2, and the person that was running the regionals there, she would not even listen to the commissioner at the time, Mike Radakovich, because he said it's 5-on-5, 20 minutes. She said, "Nope, 5-on-5, 5 minutes." And so we'd play 5 minutes, still tied, whistle, 5 minutes, still whistle, 5 minutes. So we played 10 minutes for sure. Then the ref said, "Hey, we're not going to ref because the ice is getting so dangerous." That's 30 minutes of, in a small rink. So she said, "Okay, we'll cut the ice and then come back." So then I tried to talk to her again. She said, "Nope, 5 minutes." So we came out, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes. We were up to 6 at that point. Whistle blows again. They cut the ice, and we come out for another time, and with about less than a minute, they scored in 7 5-minute overtimes. And everyone was, just laughing, because here I was also the West coordinator, "Oh, can't you control it out there? It's the wild, wild West." And, but yeah, and so we ended up losing because of that. And that made the top 10 also, not top 10. So
Dubious distinction, right?
Yeah, right.
So you've mentioned this a little bit, and I want to circle back to it about the growth of hockey, not just close to home, but throughout the state. I know there are some pretty deep rivalries between USU and Weber State. Utah has had a couple programs now. There's been some weird up and downs in Utah County.
Yeah.
But how would you assess how things have grown or just changed in hockey throughout the state of Utah?
Well, the dominant teams there for a while were Utah State, Weber, and Utah once they got back up on top. And it was really crazy. BYU was in the mix there, but they were not a the dominant team. And then they started coming along, kind of building the program. And some of those crowds that we would have, the fire marshal would come down, hey, no more. We'd be at like 2,100, 2,200 in there. And again, you're like 70 feet from the furthest seat from the ice. And so you're just like right on it. And those rivalries were crazy. I mean, literally crazy, just because they hated each other, to start off with. And again, the teams wanted to be the best, working this, trying to get the top seed. BYU is probably one of the hugest ones, Utah, and then Weber. UVU, again, they're coming along. They're trying to, get things going, and they're making progress each year. So that rivalry is really not built there yet. Unfortunately, BYU decided not to play this season, so that took a rivalry away. So now it's Weber and Utah. And what's fun is they'll hate. Back in the day, Aggies and Weber were just hateful. Slaughter was a player for Weber, and there were fans that made Slaughter suck shirts, and he loved it so much. I mean, after games, he would literally go down in the hallway and talk to our fans, and it was very cordial. It wasn't like screaming and stuff like that. Hey, how can I get one of these shirts? And, oh, we'll get you one. But that's the way it was, and there was a time for BYU playing, and their goalie was looking to go to the ECHL and play for the Steelheads, I believe. And so we thought, okay, we got the Slaughter Sucks shirts. What could we do? Let's get face signs of this guy, because one of our players, Roberto Leo, collided with him. And someone got a stolen picture where he had a little cut, had some blood coming down his face, and it was just kind of like. So we told the captain, or the coaches and the staff, hey, this is what we're doing. We're just trying to build the rivalry. We're trying to, excitement, get fans in. Okay. Well, we did that, and I forget how many of those little face things that we made. But every time, he would make a save or get scored on, they'd put the sign up, and start chanting. Well, they were good. They were playing good at that time. We ended up putting 4 goals on him in the first period, and he gets pulled. Well, BYU was so mad at us. Parents were saying this is disgraceful and stuff like that. And I'm like, it wasn't. It was again trying to build that rivalry, and it did. And I remember that. That's a lot of fun. I still have some of the posters.
See, I always remember probably one of my favorite moments, in those games. They have a cheer when they score on the goalie. They say, I can't remember exactly how it goes, but
they'll go, goalie, you suck.
Yeah,
and I mean, when you get 1,000, 1,500 people screaming that, I mean, it just like reverberates. Yeah. The goalie can't hide. He's just out there.
Yeah, because I always remember the end. It was like, hey, goalie. Yes. Like they get 1,000 to 2,000 people yelling, you suck, right at you. He's like, we're all pointing at that guy. So,
John, I know you started off with this, your new role, and we've had some fun reminiscing on your years as a coach at USU. But with this new role, what does your day-to-day look like? I mean, managing the sport, to grow the sport, maintaining rules, or changing how things are done. I mean, what does your day-to-day look like now?
So during the season, we have to get everything ready to be sent out to teams. The hardest thing is making sure that we have correct contact information, because a lot of times they're student-run programs. There is a coach, but the kid leaves, and all of a sudden, who's next? You'll send something out, hey, I'm no longer there, and so you're like, great. So we've really tried to build up a database with the head coach, and then a second person, even a third person. So when we send stuff out, somebody on the team is getting it. We've got everything ready for fall eligibility reports, sending them out to teams. They have it in August, and they should be at that time. They should know who's coming back, so they can check those. The freshmen, again, are brand new, so there's not a whole lot holding them back. Updating the manual, like you say, new rules. One rule we did this year was we went away from ties, and we used to do 4-on-4 for 5 minutes, Now we do 3-on-3 for 5 minutes, similar to what the NCAA does. And then at that point, if it's still tied, we go to a shootout. And so this year we have 3 ties, but that's because of some misunderstandings. But for the most part, all the games come to a final. You either win or you lose. And you don't get, the points, other than when the ranking, it does take in consideration that you lost and stuff like that in overtime. But that was huge. We had the UMary coach, Dan Huntley, and I talked about it. And I said, well, Dan, I really can't put it in, so it'd have to come from a team. So he got, he put it all together. Then COVID came, so it got shelved, and then this last year we voted it in. So this is the first year we're doing that. Eligibility of players. It's critical. I get eligibility reports, again, about 100, 185 eligibility reports from teams, and I got to go through each one. And if player A here only took 7 credits in the fall or only passed 7 credits in the spring, then, we need to know why. So I got to contact the team. Yep, we just found that out, John. He didn't pass a class. So, yeah, he's ineligible to play in the fall. Now, did he play any games while, they were trying to do all their stuff, which can come back and haunt, a team, because all of a sudden that team now might have been 4-4, but the 4 games that they won, this kid played in. So now they're forfeits, and so enforce the bylaws and the rules. I get tons of emails, texts, or phone calls, mainly from coaches or the student, the team president, on, hey, are we doing this right? We got this situation. This player played NCAA hockey. Can he play? Then we got to do the research, okay, he hasn't played this year, right? Nope. Well, he's played 2 years already. He's got 3 years left. So, we've got that. European players coming over to play. We got to check what leagues they played in. What's nice is a lot of the younger ones who are playing in juniors here, they haven't got caught up in that. But we have to do the research on that. And then the rankings, they come out every week starting this week. We have a break between December and January there where there's a little lull. And then we have a total of 10. And I get a spreadsheet with all the scores. And last night when I got it, we had about 190 scores not entered in for one reason or another, if someone hadn't got schedules and stuff. So we have to go through, we have to get all that done. And so I was up to 1:30 last night inputting. I'm down to 40, and so I got people helping me. I'm not doing it all myself. And get all that done. Then I have to get it prepared to send it to the person that does the calculations. He sends it back. Then I have to go through and add another score, win-loss factor, and then come out with the top 20. And then the phone calls start. Well, John, why are we 15? We're 12-2, and this team that's up above us is 8-8. Again, you tell them it's strength of schedule. Win-loss. So it's fun. It's. The hard thing is having parents call you and you say, hey, you got to talk to your coach, because if we opened it up to having parents call, if we were at 200 teams and there was 30 kids per team, you can imagine how many players there are, and then parents, and we still do, and we try and keep it,
Try and keep it down.
Yeah.
You ever had a misinput on the scores?
Yep.
Accidentally have somebody win 50-7?
Well, not so much like that, but sometimes have a team in there twice. You could miss it again. Right now, there's over, I want to say, close to 800 games played so far from September through October and the first part of November. So there's a lot of games. And I tell you, when you're looking at that, there's no way to, because you're looking for teams that don't have scores, or sometimes last year a team will put in we won 3-2 in a shootout. Well, back then shootouts didn't count, so you'd have to, go back and adjust that, put it as a tie. So, there are mistakes. It's human. I don't think the computer does. The ranking guy, he said, hey, John, I don't think, I've never seen this team before. And if someone, when they're putting it in, and they don't say University of Utah, or they don't say Utah State University and just say Utah State. Sometimes doesn't get picked up. Now you got 2 scores with 2 different names, so it can be crazy.
Sounds like fun.
It is. I love it. And I mean, as frustrating as that can be, it's, again, I just love seeing the teams and helping out. I mean, that's, and we probably picked up, I think, close to 10 teams this year, new teams, and we've got more coming in. We got Idaho, University Idaho's up in Moscow, right? So Idaho State wants to put a team in. So University of Montana State, Northern, which is Harvard, clear up by the Canadian border. So we're getting a lot of teams.
All right, well, that is former head coach of Utah State, Jon Eccles of the hockey team, current ACHA D2 commissioner. Thank you so much for coming on, giving us some of your time.
No problem, Jason. Eric, thanks. Is it all right if I say go Aggies, even though I'm not supposed to support? No, I hope they do well this year. I hope the state of Utah teams really do well. Yeah. So
except BYU. Well, I guess they aren't doing anything this year, so they aren't doing well.
Yeah.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, guys. Thank you. Appreciate all you do and the support you've given Utah State hockey. You guys have been awesome. Thanks.
This has been the Light the A podcast with Jason Walker and Eric Frandsen. Be sure to like the episode and share your favorite part of it. You can also find the show on Twitter at 1069 The Fan.